through the 5th of January at the Durban Exhibition Centre.
Wait, 300 stalls, local and international shopping? That sounds amazing. But what else is there? I mean, it's summer. We need some fun.
Oh, it's much more. There's food stalls, everything from pizza to sushi to street food. I'm already planning to have a little cheat day.
Food is definitely a win. But I heard there's entertainment every day too. Tell me these carnival rides. You know I love a bit of nostalgia.
Yes, carnival games, funfair rides, the whole shebang. It's got something for everyone. Kids, families, even us grown-ups who want to just relive our childhood.
Okay, you've convinced me. And don't forget the prizes they're giving away. I could totally use a new handbag or maybe even a weekend getaway.
Right. Imagine walking away with a huge prize and a full belly of food. Plus, it's open from midday to midnight, so we can make a whole day of it.
That sounds like the perfect summer plan. Let's do it. Durban Summer Souk, here we come.
Kazi on Radio Al Ansar.
20 minutes away from 4 o'clock. Boniso is behind the decks there, so he knows the songs, and he reminds you that Salma is here every chance he gets. A very happy belated birthday to you as well. You've been nagging me when the November started and started on my birthday. They kept asking, where's the cake? Where's the cake? Where's the cake? The day I bring the cake, he decides not to pitch up to work. He goes on his holiday. Asif was the week after. And then Boniso was the week after that. So we celebrated together. That's why I brought a nice chocolate cake, but you must, never mind. Until next year, inshallah. But for now, we're going to switch modes and switch thoughts and channel our energies. We want your messages and your contributions as well, whatever you may hear us discuss. Any questions or any thoughts or any comments, 0609041056. We know the name, we know her. It's the first time I think I'm interacting with you on radio. For the first time, not for the first time on the social network. She's a regular part of the furniture here. But for the very first time with me sitting here, Chef Samira Ismail, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the social network.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Firstly, this is just so exciting to be interacting with you on this level.
Yeah,
I've been waiting for the longest time to be on a show with you. You have no idea. I've manifested it. So alhamdulillah. Like always. When I was told that it's going to be with Salma, not that I'm throwing shade on Zahir. Zahir is still very much a bestie.
Yeah.
But I think it's different when it's someone that you've known for so many years.
For sure.
And the understanding is there. So alhamdulillah.
No, definitely. Maybe it was meant. There's a greater plan on these things as well. And a subject such as this. We spoke about it yesterday and we had a psychologist on air with us. And she was amazing. She gave from a therapist's perspective how important it is to address these types of things, abuse, but also what was nice was she made points, very pertinent points about the possible repercussions of gender-based violence, the effects on the children, effects on society, on the community coming together. She spoke about the perpetrator himself or herself, their issues they may be dealing with, the things that they may have been going on.
Yeah.
So it was so very insightful, and I just want to mention that at the onset because I think that was very informative and that was fantastic. That was brilliant to actually raise that. And I mentioned today we'll talk more from a personal experience as somebody that's now been through it. But before we get into the doom and the gloom, with all the weddings we see on our social media, we are always inundated with the beautiful bridal pictures. And we have these wedding photographers that we all follow, that we all know and love.
Yes.
And we see them and we see the amazing things that we do, that they do. You see the hair, the makeup, the poses, all the beautiful, lovely glamour, the flower arrangements.
Yes. The venue,
the decor, the food,
the menu.
Everything that goes into your wedding. And why I'm emphasizing on wedding, because your wedding was beautiful. You had an amazing wedding with the most amazing scarf. And I remember how you walked in with your dad and everything. It was incredible. And I want to emphasize that because that is where it all starts.
Absolutely.
That is the beginning of all of our lives. And it's where it's somewhat, you think now that is the be all and end all of your life, but it really does set the tone in that pre-wedding preparation where sometimes you could pick up red flags, but you choose to ignore them. Tell me 100%. I'm wrong. And
you are 100%
you choose to ignore them because if you're going to call off that wedding, what will people say? Number one. And if you can't call it the wedding because you want to get married.
Exactly.
So what was it like for you, the Samira pre-marriage, in preparation for marriage? What did you go for? Therapy? Did you get advice from anybody in particular with regards to before you encountered anything at all? How did you prepare for marriage?
So I didn't actually go for, firstly, I love the intro. I love the way that the topic is, because you are so correct in saying that it starts from there. Yeah. And we often ignore that. Okay, fine. My mom always says the wedding can be beautiful, but it's the marriage that you have to 100%. Work on. And our elders do say that. So I didn't go for any marriage classes, any therapy at all. I was given advice here and there, but the advice that was given was mainly about how the daughter-in-law should be within that family, within that marriage, all of that kind of stuff, the things that the female has to do.
Right.
And I think the one thing, I sat down with my mom is an exceptionally wise woman, alhamdulillah for that. She always said to me that a man has to always understand a female's emotions. Okay. Through every step of her life, whether she's, with child, whether she's going through her period or whatever it is, that emotions. And if a man doesn't understand that before marriage, it can alter a lot. But for a female, I was always given advice, this is how you must be, this is your new family, these are your in-laws, you must be a certain way. And yes, it is a lot of pressure on us, because it's like, oh, if we don't do it, are we doing something wrong? Are they going to be displeased with us? Are they going to go to our parents and say, we've done this? I mean, there were silly things that were said to my mom when I was in the marriage and I didn't follow a certain criteria or rule, and my mom was like very baffled with that kind of thing that was said. So unfortunately, that stigma, that perception is there, but I feel that as females we have a lot more pressure on us to be a certain way. And if we come to an elder or come to someone and say, I'm struggling, I can't do this, please help me, please keep quiet and stay in that marriage. My parents did not do that. Alhamdulillah, they're very modern, they're very modest, they're very Islamically inclined. But you hear this within the community. I've heard a lot of parents say, please just keep quiet and stay in your marriage. Your doors are now closed for your mom's house. And that
sometimes they don't quite say it quite so directly, but it's almost insinuating, look, to try and keep the peace.
Keep the peace.
And we've all went through this. That's what people will do. Yes, that's the number one line. We all went through it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When it comes to keeping the peace, I asked my mom the same question. Do you feel peaceful in keeping the peace? Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Kind of worse.
It's worse. It's like detrimental to every single emotion that you could have ever felt, but it also questions the personality and the character traits that you have to think to yourself again, am I doing this correctly? Are they going to be pleased with me? And then it's a whole facade of, you are this person's daughter-in-law, you are that person's wife. But no, I have an identity. This is who I am. This is whose child I am. And then I am your wife. And then I am your daughter-in-law. So
okay, so now you're preparing now to get married to this person. During the course of the preparation, were there any points in time that now when you think about it in retrospect that, that was dangerous, that was a red flag? What were some of those?
Firstly, number one, I just have to disclaimer this, that I'm a very family-oriented person.
Right.
As many people, I mean, I think you know this also. You see it on social media, you see it within our conversations. But I think that one thing as females, as getting married and stuff, or courting, we need to understand the relationship a man has with, or son has with his mom. It's imperative to understand the understanding that they have, and what whole inverted commas do they have with each other, or she has with him, or he has with her, because that could be very detrimental. It could be very toxic, and there could be signs of very deep narcissism in that.
Okay.
So that was one thing that I ignored, thinking, it's just the pressure of wedding. It's just that too much is going on. They're living far away. It was a family in Bloemfontein, so it's 7-8 hours away from Durban. So it's like, okay, fine. The distance, something is contributing to the fights. And I just always thought, I'll be very honest, I just always thought it's the pressure of the wedding.
And then you find people will start telling you that, don't worry, once you're together, then everything will work out. It's only now because you're not married yet.
Yes, many times. Don't stress. The distance will make it better. The distance will ease out. Once you're married, everything will be fine. And I was like, okay, cool. Disclaimer. That's not actually what it is. It's actually worse. So they were doing up our own apartment and stuff.
Right.
So everything had to go the mom's way. Okay. And the moment I said something, I just asked a question, all hell broke loose. I got a call from him. I was, shouted at and everything. And still I thought, it's just the pressure of the wedding. So those are the kind of things that I said, no, it's chilled. And the second thing is the manner in which he approached fights and arguments.
Yeah.
You do not, under any circumstances, when a girl is bringing forward how she feels, her emotion, you do not tell her, you're just overreacting, and puts the phone down, blocks you and stuff. That's not how things are supposed to be. And those are the small little things that I now understand. I should have thought, it's a red flag. I shouldn't have.
But you choose to ignore it.
I chose to ignore it because there was, a marriage, and there was it was a proposal. Actually, I should have started with that. But there was love and stuff like that. What I thought was love, but you don't hurt the people that you love. So yes, those are the red flags.
So what would people say now if I were to play devil's advocate now, right? And throw a little spanner in the works here and say, the woman of today, and I'll be honest with you, a lot more assertive perhaps than the woman before. But then comes the question that a typical scenario is you're getting married and people will say, he's a nice boy, he's from a good family, and they're doing all these things for you, even if it means let the mother-in-law do the house the way you want to. Once you're married, you can do it your way, it's fine. And to kind of just oblige and go along with it. And then afterwards, you can slowly start doing things your way. What's your thoughts on that? Or do you find that to be, I find that in a very dangerously manipulative way of handling yourself, because you are now giving a false impression to that boy and his family that this is how you are. And then all of a sudden afterwards, they're going to meet a different side of you. And I think that's even
it's worse.
wrong.
It's toxic.
Yeah,
it's toxic. I like to use that word because after being in that marriage, I realized the depth of toxicity.
Right.
And 100%. Yes, just but the thing is, Salma, if you unpack the statement and the question that you just asked, what actually defines a good family in terms of what society feels? Wealth.
Wealth is a big factor.
Materialistic items is what people say. He comes from a very good family.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, no, let's look at deen. Do they have deen? Is it there a certain criteria that they want you to follow? Nothing. When I got into the marriage, there were certain Islamic things that did not add up. And there was certain accusations that I was insulted with because I'm a Durban Muslim and they are not Durban Muslims. We are Shirk Muslims. That's the kind
of a whole different conversation.
So those are the kind of things that we need to understand is when you say a good family, understand and unpack the statement rather than thinking about what society feels and sort of materialistic
Our
things.
WhatsApp line is going crazy right now.
So yes, it does give a different perception because exactly what you just said is exactly what happened to me. I was very submissive to a certain extent in the beginning, but that's not like me. If you know me well, you know I'm not like that.
How transparent were you? Because a lot of people now feel they should have been a little bit more open or a little bit more vocal. People are now going to the point of saying, when you are getting married, say, that he needs to pay for certain things. You need to support certain things. Say, I'm not willing to use my money on household items. I'm just giving an example.
No, yeah, for sure.
That those types of things, girls, when they're getting married or boys or whatever, are not really open to discussing because it's more about the flowery language and flirting and getting to know each other. We're not discussing the real things that are going to actually come up after marriage. Did you discuss those types of things? And was that ever an issue? Financial aspects?
We didn't really discuss it in depth. It was just taken for granted because he comes from an exceptionally rich family that I wouldn't have to work.
Okay.
And I was told you shouldn't be working. There's no need for it. And I felt that in the beginning, it was okay because I needed to understand, number one, the fact that I'm now a wife. I need to understand the marriage aspect, a new city, a new place, a new province, and basically just being a daughter-in-law and a part of the family. But as time went on, I did want to work, and it was just like, no, please know that you are dependent on me, and that's it, full stop. So it was that whole male dominance, but a very typical male dominance that wasn't very motivating. So my dreams, my career, my goals, everything was just crushed in that split second. And when I did go out to say, I was approached by a forum to be a treasurer and build up to be, more into the forum. That was just easily crushed, very quickly crushed.
So far that's the build up. And now let's go to the messages before we get a little bit more into it now with what's happened now post-marriage and how the dynamic shifted. Salams, this person's saying bye. I didn't know I sound so, has my voice gone that deep, eh? It's really enjoying, great show and awesome tracks. Oh, I suppose he's thanking Sponiso for the tracks that he's playing today. So that's a shout out to Sponiso. Assalamu alaikum, a message from my favorite chef, Chef Samira. I just want to remind her that she's my inspiration and an absolutely strong individual. I have to mention that I actually set my alarm today so I don't miss the show. She's such an inspiration to all women and many of us look up to her and her strengths. Lots and lots of love. Tasneem Sayed Ismail all the way from Johannesburg. Thank you for that. Another message that came through. Oh, this is a long one. Assalamu alaikum. Keep up the good work, Sama. Oh, thank you. We are extremely proud of the warrior that this young lady has molded herself into. She's now even more strong, robust, and resilient, helping others to come out of the closet of abuse. Forget society. They are not there when you are being beaten. That is true. My Samira was 8 hours. This is your mom. My Samira was 8 hours away from home, away from her mother, married into an infamous family in Bloemfontein, in whose hands we trusted our beautiful, intelligent child, sadly to be abused verbally, emotionally, physically, and financially. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved my Samira from death. Alhamdulillah. We are proud of you, Samira, mom to a beautiful daughter. Thank you, Sister Wahida. That was beautiful. There was another message. Okay, no, that was a forwarded message. There we go. This one says, you guys are giving some really bad advice to future wives. No wonder there are so many divorces today. Did I give advice to wives? I don't know if I did. Please tell me if I did. If I did give advice, I will stop giving advice.
I think experience.
Did I give advice, Boniso, to anybody? No. Yeah. We were just unpacking. I don't know.
Experience, yes. Yeah. But clearly experience and
I'm not in the position to give advice. I'm only married 11 years. So
only 11 years, Salma.
But yes, somebody else. Okay, no, this one is a mashallah topic. This message comes from Butterfly. Thank you, Butterfly, for your message. Just a few minutes to go till the news. But thank you for listening, MI2, whoever you are. But yeah, let's get into a little bit more detail. It's important to unpack this. I think it is a sensitive thing. And if you follow podcasts today, like Mindscape Podcast, for example, and many others, they're discussing it because it's topics to be discussed. And we are both women, but at the same time, it would be nice to perhaps have a different platform to talk about this at length in a panel discussion or something like that one day. But when did you start noticing a shift? How soon after marriage? What did you notice first? That things were starting to make you a little bit uncomfortable?
On the honeymoon.
Oh, quick. Okay.
Yeah, very quick. So the walima and the wedding, yes, obviously there was a build up to events, and the walima and the wedding and the walima were a week apart. So after the walima was done, 2 days later we started the honeymoon and we got to our destination. And the very next day, after resting, a call comes through from his mom. And it was obviously put on speaker because now there's nothing to hide. It's just one family.
Yeah.
And she just needed to vent. I was like, okay, chilled. She starts venting, and then amidst the conversation, she's like, do you have me on speaker? And he said, yes, of course. I mean, what's the problem? Please put me off speaker. But why? Because Samira is there. She's still very much an outsider. So when I heard that, I was crushed. I won't lie.
But it wasn't anything about you.
It wasn't anything about me. It was actually about another family member, very close family member that she needed to vent about. And there was like vulgarity. And I was like, whoa, I do not come from a home like that. So obviously that was the first thing. And then the second thing was the statement that you just made. It's been a week and a half into the marriage. All the festivities and the celebrations are now done. And this is the first comment that was made. He's younger brother. So I was married to the eldest son and there's 3 boys. So the middle brother was the one that was, I think, a lot softer. He had a little bit more rahma in his heart, or raham in his heart. And he was very affected by that statement. So that was the first thing. And then after we got back from the honeymoon, she just didn't want her son to stay away from her, and we lived 30 seconds away from I timed it. That's what marriage does to you in a toxic relationship. And it was just like, please, can you just send her back home because I want you back. So there was a lot of hidden things that was not said to me about the family. And there were statements that were made that made me quite alarmed in terms of the relationship or how she saw her son. So it was very much, I was in love with my son. that kind of thing. We went out for coffee, and a lot of explicit ways of speaking about her son was mentioned to the son's wife, which made me feel very uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. It made me feel very, very weird. It touched into a very personal and intimate part of the couple's relationship at the same time, which again is very alarming, because I think there should be a boundary. Not I think, there has to be a boundary within that space. So that started in the beginning. There was a lot of other abuse. And then it went on to the physical abuse 6-7 months after the marriage and the honeymoon, and everything was over.
Okay, so clearly the mother-in-law played some sort of role there initially, but we haven't yet touched into the husband yet and how his behavior kind of changed. So they haven't. So what we'll do is we'll break for the news, and then we'll continue on the other side of the news as well. Let's read the messages very quickly before Eric comes in with the news. I'm from Cape Town and we got married. The man must do the place where you're going to stay. Yes, that is a very strong Cape Townian tradition. I was fortunate to be asked by my future in-laws what I would like. To me, it was teamwork. I was happy. I never saw my home until I entered it after my reception. My in-laws treated me like their daughter. My husband treated me according to the Quran, and this shocked me. I was asked daily how am I feeling and what I wanted. That's wonderful. No wonder you call yourself Butterfly, because you were treated like a butterfly. Alhamdulillah. I'm a fan of Chef Samira. I know her from TikTok. This is Yusuf. This one says, okay, these are other messages here. What is going on here? Salams, really think this is a great topic and should be discussed often. These issues are happening daily. Individuals' true identity are hidden. I lost my sister to an abusive marriage. Allah make it easy on all, from Ashraf Narat. Thank you so much for those contributions. Keep it coming. We'll break for news. And on the other side of news, we carry on and talk more detail with Chef Samira as we unpack her beautiful marriage, a wedding to a nightmare marriage.
على حسنه دائما أقسم. An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al Ansar News.
Making news this hour, the 5th of December. The news from Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM. National Energy Regulator is back again in Durban for hearings on Eskom's proposed tariff hikes. I'm Eric Kimonina. The National Energy Regulator of South Africa is back in Durban again tomorrow for a second attempt at the KwaZulu-Natal leg of its hearings on Eskom's proposed tariff hikes. The power utility is asking the energy regulator for a 36% increase next year. Reporters that the Durban leg to hear feedback on Eskom's tariff proposals was supposed to have taken place at the Royal Hotel in Durban in November. However, it was postponed due to higher than expected turnouts and concerns over venue capacity. The hearings will now be held at the Greyville Racecourse over 2 days, with the first session kicking off tomorrow. More news. The High Court in Pretoria postponed the fraud and corruption case against former National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula to January 20th, 2025. Mapisa-Nqakula made a brief appearance in court today. Nqakula, who is facing 12 counts of corruption and one of money laundering, was granted 50,000 rands bail in April. She's accused of receiving kickbacks of 4.5 million rands from a defense contractor. The allegations against Mapisa-Nqakula were made by well-known defense industry businesswoman Nobasa Ntondwa Ndlovu, who is the sole director of the logistics company. The company did business with the South African National Defense Force. The company owner Ndlovu claimed she paid bribes totaling some 2 million rands to Mapisa-Nqakula. The judge, Aubrey Ledwaba, postponed the matter to allow for the state to go through the argument's documents. More news now. The Vice President of the Republic of South Africa, Paul Mashatile, is answering questions in Parliament for the NCOP, that's the National Council of Provinces. Amongst the issues asked or proposed is the issue of the spaza shop crisis in the country. The Vice President had this to say.
The Business Act and the Business Licensing Bill will help to control this operation, particularly to ensure that there are no counterfeiting goods and goods that are not required, or goods that are not required to be sold to our people. One of the things that Honorable Meimang, we think we should do, and we are already engaging with municipalities, is to strengthen bylaws, because most of these things are managed through the enforcement of bylaws. We have noticed that in many of these communities, bylaws were not really being enforced. So we want to ensure that all the municipalities use these laws.
South African Airways pilots begin their strike over pay today. The South African Pilots Association members picketed outside the airline's park offices, that's in Captain Park in Johannesburg. They were joined by the National Transport Movement Pilots Forum. Negotiations began in May, with the Pilots Association initially asking for a 30% salary increase. They reduced it to 15% benefits. SAA offered 8.4%, backdated to the 1st of April 2024. The pilots, Busiso Ngomalu, told the media that they only had 4 days of actual engagement during the 8 months of negotiations. The SAA interim CEO, John Lamola, weighs in on the pilot strike.
We have cancelled about 60% of our flights in terms of quality of quantitative volume, because remember we fly like Perth, Brazil, Lagos, and so forth, which we may not be able to sustain if the strike goes beyond, say, 2 days or 3 days from now. And this is going to damage South African Airways. And I believe and hope, and I'd expected that our pilots, as some of the most computatively equipped among our staff, who are able to calculate what they call 4 days of negotiations, where they extrapolate the hours within 8 months, where there was, of course, a lot of exchange of documentation and so on, that they will make their calculations and know what damage they're causing to South African Airways.
Your weather now, 29 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story. The National Energy Regulator of South Africa is back in Durban again tomorrow for a second attempt at the KwaZulu-Natal leg of its hearings on Eskom's proposed tariff hike. The venue will be the Greyville Racecourse. That's the news. We now cross over to Pietermaritzburg.
Making news in Pietermaritzburg on 105.6 FM. The Department of Social Development is racing against time to implement measures aimed at addressing children's online safety, teenage pregnancy, sexual assault, and statutory rape. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good afternoon. I'm Mehreen Mia. The Department of Social Development is racing against time to implement measures aimed at addressing children's online safety, teenage pregnancy, sexual assault, and statutory rape. National Parliament was informed that in KwaZulu-Natal, only 62% of the 131,442 targeted children had been reached through the Community-Based Prevention and Early Intervention Program. This program was designed to support and sustain families, preventing the removal of children from their homes and communities. Pietermaritzburg Lifeline and Rape Crisis said parents had a crucial role to play in educating young girls about the dangers of social media. Executive Director Sinikiwe Biela said they had recently dealt with 2 young girls who visited their offices for counseling. And finally, the police officer accused of raping a woman who came to the Pietermaritzburg Central Station for an affidavit returned to court yesterday, where his case was adjourned until February for further investigation. Yesterday marked the 3rd time the officer appeared in court since his arrest in August. The 26-year-old woman who was waiting for an affidavit at the station was allegedly summoned by the officer to his office, where she was raped. The second court appearance in October was postponed due to an outstanding deal. Taking a look at our temperatures, we are currently experiencing a high of 28 degrees Celsius. We do have a janaza message. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. The Mayat of Baigura Kathri, PAA care of Kathri's radio, husband of Fatima Kathri, father of Faisal, Faiza, and Farhana, father-in-law of Shamima Kathri. His Mayat will remain at the Sales Musalla, 14 Timeball Boulevard, Point Waterfront, Durban. Janaza Salah is at Masjid al-Hilal at 4:30 p.m. with the burial at Al-Hilal Cemetery. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That's it from Pietermaritzburg on 105.6 FM. For Ansar News, I'm Mehreen Mia. Assalamu alaikum.
Station for Conversation, Radio Al Ansar. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.
Looking for the perfect Umrah experience? Look no further. One Stop Travel and Tours brings you exclusive Umrah group packages with Qatar Airways departing from Johannesburg. Enjoy a seamless journey with flights, accommodations in Makkah and Medina, and visas all included. Experience spiritual peace with Ziyarat Tours guided in English. Departure dates start from December 25th, returning by January 14th. For a stress-free, soul-enriching Umrah journey, call One Stop Travel today at 031-271-2800. One Stop Travel and Tours. Your pilgrimage, our priority.
The views and opinions expressed by the presenters and guests of Radio Al Ansar are not necessarily the views and opinions of Radio Al Ansar and the Al Ansar Foundation.
When you give water, you're reaching out to drought-affected areas, bringing them to life. Fresh water to drink, to clean, and to grow. That's the power of water. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
Al Ansar Shop trading hours are Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Saturdays 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., closed Sundays and public holidays. Al Ansar Shop, your one-stop Islamic shop.
They convinced the world to believe that terrorists look like beards and thobes. Now, as the facade cracks, one martyr after another, the world sees through the broken windows and now knows the true face of terrorism. It wears suits and ties and smiles behind lies.
اللهم احفظ المسجد الأقصى من اليهود الحاقدين. اللهم أعد المسجد الأقصى إلى رحاب المسلمين. اللهم وطهر المسجد الأقصى من اليهود الغاصبين. اللهم عليك بهم فإنهم لا يعجزونك يا قوي يا متين. اللهم منزل الكتاب مجري السحاب هازم الأحزاب سريع الحساب اهزم اليهود وزلزلهم يا قوي يا عزيز.
Radio Al Ansar.
Salma Kazi on Radio Al Ansar.
فلسطين ستبقى لن تغيب الخير يطيب.
Radio Al Ansar, Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Maritzburg 105.6 FM.
قريب للحق مجيب وشعبك حر. فلسطين ستبقى لن تغيب الخير يطيب ويفنى الشر. ونصر الله حتما قريب للحق مجيب وشعبك حر. فلتحيا ويحيا نضال سنين لبيك يا فلسطين لبيك يا أقصى. جيل يأتي من بعده جيل لا يعرف المستحيل ولحقه لن ينسى. فلتحيا ويحيا نضال سنين لبيك يا فلسطين لبيك يا أقصى. جيل
It's just a few minutes past 4 o'clock. Welcome. Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. I'm Salma Wahab sitting in for Zahir Basa yesterday and today. He'll return tomorrow, inshallah. We're unpacking a little bit of the GBV, gender-based violence topic with our very own, somebody who's in and out of our studios all the time, always smiling, always cooking. But sometimes it's nice to dig into a little bit of their background, and we follow so many such people as well on social media who've been very vocal these past few days as well, that share openly that our lives may seem perfect, but we've been through certain things, and they tend to share it in little bits and pieces, whatever they are comfortable with at the end of the day. Lots of messages, great response from the listeners. Somebody says, can I send a comment regarding the marriage and in-laws? Please do. You are more than welcome to comment and send in your contributions. Somebody else says, my husband had to go to mom every day, and knowing we have a child, waiting feeds him controlled his money. Feeds him and controlled his money. I had to get permission to see my parents only if she said yes. She was very evil. Threw me out of the car. I have a plate and pins on my leg. My daughter also has an evil mother-in-law. Wants to break her marriage. They have 3 sons and turns him against them and wants the money for casinos and sangomas. 1,000 must feed 5 people and 1 is a baby. Okay. 1,000 rand must feed 5 people. Okay. So that's some of the messages coming from the listeners. Somebody else says, what a brave woman Chef Samir is. Did hear her story on Zahir's show before. Yes, I know she's spoken about it. She wants to create awareness about it. And I think that's what's important. She's your average Durban Muslim girl. And she wants to say that these things can happen to me too. And I think that's important. We think our children are
we're not the first, we're not the last.
Yeah. No, when you think abused women, or if we're just particularly focusing on women today because you're the guest, but if we think you have this picture almost of a very quiet, shy person who's been beaten and left in a corner there and crying.
Exactly.
That's the image you have of abuse. But abuse is on different scales. And this is what the psychologist mentioned yesterday. It's financially. You are abused emotionally, spiritually. You are also abused by without even thinking you are being abused, where it's toxic behaviors that are just controlling and hindering your way of life. Very quickly, before we get back in our discussion, let me just finish this message. This topic is so prevalent and needs to be discussed, but also what action can be taken to ensure there's no abuse so early in the marriage, irrespective of the prominent family. Seems like it's a psycho family. That mother-in-law has psychological issues and she should be called out. Is the father-in-law late? If so, what do the elders think about her behavior? But then again, money does silence a lot of people. Maybe all be protected from abusive relationships. Ameen. Another one says, mothers of a boy child must learn to let go of their boys the minute they know what he wants, that he wants to be married. Yes. Even the sisters shouldn't take the place of a mother when their brother gets married. Please, mothers of boys, leave him be with his wife. So this seems to be striking a nerve with a lot of people.
Yeah, really.
Clearly the boy mom aspect, and that's it. I'm going to leave that for Nightline and things Mohammed to unpack. They've got the hours and hours to go through it, and they're the right ones to also tackle this type of subject. But with the limited time that we have, where we reach the point that now we've got just over 15 minutes, so it's okay. Relax. Where we are right now is we've reached the point, you've had this beautiful wedding, right? That you guys completely paid for, that you sorted out, that it was not a dual wedding where now he can throw it back in your face.
No, initially it was, and then my mother was like, I cannot. We have to put our foot down and have a separate function, because it was just like it. I mean, the reception was happening in Durban at the time, but it was just like, no, I want this type of chocolates, I want this. And my mother was like, we need to focus more on things that are of importance rather than just the nishani or the souvenir or the sinni as they call it. No, that's not the focal point. Eventually my mom was like, I'm sorry, we need to do separate functions.
You see why I'm asking? Because those all become
a focal point,
the precursors to what happens afterwards.
Exactly.
You know, like I paid for your wedding, or I'm paying for that dress, kind of thing.
No, that statement was made to me. Please don't forget that you are dependent on me.
This was said by who?
By him.
Okay.
Yeah. Just after the 5th beating, I think. Yeah.
Wait, do you count it?
You know, Salma, in my earlier interview, I said that my memory, alhamdulillah, was good.
How would you know that was your 5th? Like, you can remember?
I have everything documented on my phone under notes.
Clever.
Time, date, place, person, feeling, emotion, everything, vehicle, you name it. I can even tell you February 11th, 2020, this is what happened at 1:00 in the afternoon. My memory was on a different level at that point, so much so that she made a statement saying, this girl remembers everything. And I was like, yes, I do actually remember everything.
Did you start documenting it immediately, or only afterwards you started?
After the first beating, I was like, oh my God, I'm like, what? This is so intense. And then I started documenting everything.
Okay, I'm just going to put a disclaimer out here. We are going to be talking abuse and violence. So for young listeners, I just have to put that out there.
Yes, please.
What
messy.
We are going to go into a little bit of that right now. But so just I'm putting that out there. If
Disclaimer.
You have young listeners, please be wary of that. You can distract them, give them something to do in the meantime. It's for sensitive listening. But let's just go into that as delicately as we possibly can now.
Okay. Yes.
A personality like yourself that is bubbly. And this is a comment that was also made from other instances where abuse became a problem. They said she's got a big mouth. Or she's very assertive, very strong-minded, and they are often the ones that find themselves in situations. Contrary to that, though, I know of women that are very soft, very delicate, and then you'll say they're the ideal target of abuse because they're almost the perfect ones.
Exactly.
They're not going to fight back. But the ones that stand up and stand the ground make a little bit harder targets, because now were you the type to swallow it, or did you ever find yourself in an altercation? Tell us how the whole dynamic changed.
So in the beginning, I would just keep quiet.
Right.
I would just, it's fine.
With an argument, you mean?
No, just, yeah. If there was an altercation or whatever it is. I mean, we had so many family meetings before Eid that year. And then it was like just 2 or 3 months.
What was a family meeting?
About like how she wasn't understanding of, I mean, she was told by his Mulana friend, that, you need to understand that there's a new individual coming into the home. She's going to be your daughter-in-law. You must treat her like a daughter, etc., etc.
This was in front of you? Or?
This was just before we got married.
Okay, fine.
Before they could all come down to Durban and stuff like that. And so those kind of things were said. But unfortunately, the family meetings entailed the whole thing of, you need to be a certain way. She needs to be a certain way. I don't accept this. But how can you do this? How can you take her side? I'm your mother. I carried you into my womb for 9 months. Those kind of things are blackmail, manipulation kind of thing that shouldn't be done to the son. But those were how the family meetings started off.
Okay, so they had family meetings before the time. And after marriage, now you say that were there also family meetings?
Yeah, no, that was more of the family meetings. So 2 or 3 happened before, and then afterwards was just like, she just could not accept me. I mean, she was the only female at that point.
Were you not her choice?
I don't know. Actually, she asked for a very bubbly girl for her son, but I don't think she understood the length of bubbly that I had within.
The length of bubbly.
Yeah, the length of bubbly. Or the volume rather of
but
bubbly.
We're still not meeting husband yet. So we haven't met him yet.
So
when does he enter the scene here? Because so far it's still seeming like a Samira versus mom scenario. I'm not hearing anything so far. And I'm told you I'm going to toy with you here a little bit. I'm not hearing him yet. So when did he change? Or when did his behavior flip minus mom? Take mom out of the equation now. And when did his persona change, or did it?
It changed to a certain extent.
Right.
In the sense of the pressure. And okay, I do understand that when a guy gets married, there is a lot of pressure. There's that responsibility. There's 2 individuals coming together, 2 females. I was with him on that page throughout. For the longest time.
Yeah.
And then I could notice that the comments that she was making started engulfing his life, in the sense of, if I don't follow the rules and regulations of her, I'm not going to be a part of the family. I'm going to be ousted, because he didn't have any backgrounds of studying.
He didn't want to seem like he's siding with you.
Correct. And even if he did, she never let him hear the end of it. It was constant phone calls. And as much as I tried to be submissive to it, I just couldn't. It wasn't okay. I was here to make a marriage work. I wasn't here to be a third wheel in my own marriage. And then I could notice the switch in the tone, in the personality, and his friends thought that he was so amazing, but behind closed doors, I wouldn't say anything derogatory, but he wasn't the man that I thought he was. Come November 3rd, 2019, in the afternoon was when the first beating happened. And something told me, we had an argument, and a few words were kind of exchanged, and something told me, Samira, just turn around. Just turn around. And as soon as I turned around, I just saw his hand coming and swinging and slapping me, and I fell to the ground. The sound of the tiles amplified into my ear, and at that point I thought, oh my God, I'm going to go deaf. I'm just not going to make it. That was the first time. The 4th time was one of the worst times, because it was on the 1st of Ramadan. And if somebody can do that to you in Ramadan, then there's no rahmah in their heart at all.
What triggered it in Ramadan?
Again, it was just petty fights. But the one thing that really irked me so much is that after the beating, he sat on the couch and he just looked at me. He didn't come to my aid. He didn't come to help me.
There was no hug, no
there
makeup,
was
nothing.
There was nothing at all. There wasn't even a sorry. Like, I don't know what came over me. I'm sorry, nothing. And his friend came. I had to crawl into the room, try to just, get myself together, get up, typical wife, get up, go into the bathroom, change, whatever it is. It's now time to prepare for iftar after getting a beating. And his friend walks in while I was in the shower. So I finished in the shower and stuff, and they are in the lounge and, all of that kind of stuff. And, when I came out, he was just sitting and laughing with his friend. And I was like, wow, that finished me. It broke me to my inner core.
That for him, life carries on.
Life carried on. And his friend said to me, I know you didn't go to Durban to get savories from your mom. It's COVID. Come, empty out your freezer. Give me some. I said, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. I made it for us.
This is his friend?
This is his friend. His Mulana friend.
Mulana friend.
Yeah. So
always a Mulana friend.
So it was just,
you can laugh about it now.
Yeah. It was just one of those things, I guess. At that point, I was just like, oh, okay, he doesn't have any raham in his heart for me. He just laughed and laughed and laughed, and we had to just be normal. I had to just be normal every single time.
How long were you married for?
1 year, 10 months.
1 year, 10 months. So this was within the first 6 months, you said? No?
Ramadan was just after a year.
Okay.
Just after a year.
That's when it intensified.
It intensified.
Wow, a whole year?
A whole year later. And the last time it happened, I was bleeding. And that was...
I want to talk about that before we run out of time. And the time just goes away. And I'm just seeing the flashing of all the WhatsApp messages on the side. So I will get to your messages at the end of the program. I will... and if you want to, we could bring Samira onto, I think, with Muhammad Variawa, one of the shows. And it's nice if you had one or two others that could be joining you in studio. So, Correct. But let me get into that very quickly. There was an instance you told me this, and if it's okay with you,
no, that's fine, yes.
To discuss. You mentioned being locked up in the room, and the phone was taken away and things like that. Tell us about that.
So we did have a bit of an argument, and it was a very intense argument because it was always just like disappearing. After COVID, it was just like he would just disappear, and I would ask him, like, what's happening? Where are you? I'm all alone in a province that I don't know anything
You
of.
lived with your in-laws or on your own?
No, I lived on my own, but
Okay.
I was practically, living with them, inverted commas.
Right.
But after, just before COVID, because she wanted her son back, she took everything away. That was the ultimatum, if that's the right word. I'll give you everything back if you give Samira her 3 talaqs.
Wow.
Because I want you back. Okay, cool. After COVID happened, the business was taken away, and we tried to make, ends meet. And I even said, let's move to Durban if you would like to move to Durban. But I said to myself, if I have to do that, I would get more hate from her. So I said, let's just stay in Bloemfontein. And we tried to sort of navigate our way through that. And we got into a fight because he would spend most of his time with his friends, literally just doing nothing. And I wasn't that type of person. I'm a very go-getter person. And we got into a fight. He took my phone and he just threw it. He ran out of the house. He locked the gate and he just threw the keys. But before that was the beating. So I was semi-unconscious at that time. I was very dazed. Everything was a blur, and I just kept on reading. That's all I continued to do. And I had to crawl around finding my phone and finding the keys. And
but he was hitting you for what?
It was just an argument that happened. Like, I asked him, why do you keep going? Like, you literally go at 7 a.m. and you come back at 11 p.m. at night. You do not answer any of my calls. You block my calls because he just wants to just sit in town with his friends, and that's it. And I needed things. I needed to go out. I needed to get essentials, but there was no contact. So when he would get into, I don't know whether he was bipolar or what. I'm not sure. I can't really comment on that, or whether it was drugs. I'm not sure. But he would just block me, and I would be completely like I didn't have any contact. And because I was so submissive, I don't know whether that was a disadvantage or what it was. And when I asked him, like, what is going on? Like, I cannot do this. Like, I need a communication. You're the only person I have here. And he would just get angry. Oh, just leave me alone. And they are my friends. And I'm like, no one's telling you not to be friends. And that's how the beating started. And that's how he left for 2 days.
It's very triggering, and the messages are just not stopping. I wish we had more time to really go into this because there is so much. But from your personal perspective, I'm sure we will have a follow-up discussion on this. But what message would you give to somebody who is potentially in a situation that they think could turn violent, or perhaps already is, or maybe has a child that maybe they fear this as well? What advice would you give them?
Firstly, especially if you have a child, I think my mom would speak closely on that. But if you are in that situation, please understand that there is a problem. Please notice and acknowledge that there is such a thing as red flags, because it's imperative that we understand nobody is worth, no guy at least, is worth our sorrows, our tears, and our unhappiness. No one. And the moment you understand that there's red flags, take a stand for yourself. No one is going to judge you. I promise that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't think there was, but 4 years later, I'm at the most amazing place in my life. Alhamdulillah. I've achieved a lot before 30, and alhamdulillah for that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been so great to me. And the moment we realize that there's something wrong, that is our first step of accepting the tawakkul from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say, I've given you this, you my soldier, I've challenged you, now I want to heal you, because I know you could have gone through this. Now let's do it. So the moment you do this, don't stay a victim, become a GBV survivor. If you are currently within GBV, but if you're just being abused, become a survivor of it. That's your strength. Turn your situation and pain into your strength. I can see tears already in your eyes, Salma.
No. This don't get me emotional. You know what? This gives me a lot of positivity in the sense that people are speaking up. They're discovering it.
Yes.
It's not about sitting there and crying and think, oh my God, what she went through.
I didn't
it's
cry
not about that.
until 2 years later.
It is not about that. It's about how you've pushed through and what you've made for yourself.
Alhamdulillah.
And you look at other women now, like Unaysa Suleiman is somebody else who I know and love, and I know her very well. And what she went through, and she was very vocal about that. And lots of women on social media have shared about it. So it's not something to sit and cry about.
No, definitely
it's something
not.
you stomp on it and make your life.
Make your pain your strength.
You make your life. Let me read those messages very quickly before Fahim and them take over. Keep me anonymous. Okay. Please, both mothers of daughters and sons need to realize their children are adults and they stay out of their lives if they cannot guide them correctly when asked for advice. Thank you very much for that beautiful input. Salams, lots of love to Samira. I'm so proud of you. In Islam, it is felt for a person to disclose information they may know about a person when the family is doing research on them. Yes. A lot of people don't want to say anything because they don't want to get involved. When someone asks us about an individual, we have to be honest and open. It is someone's life decision they're doing research about. After getting divorced, people will say, oh, but we knew this. I know what she's talking about, this person. We didn't want to say, I thought as you do research, someone else will tell you. Society can make a change too to support people who want to get married. I love that. Beautiful, valuable insight. Blah, blah, blah. By the way, are those ex-family members still alive, or did their ego kill them? Allah keep you blessed, Sister Samira. Let's see. The other one comes from want to be anonymous. Wasn't for the mother-in-law, they wouldn't have husbands. Okay, of course. Not all mothers-in-laws are bad. Definitely 100%. But I really feel for you, my sister. Your mother-in-law needs to go for what?
Therapy.
Sakrating. I don't know what she's saying. Her message there. Somebody else is pinging here. Is it possible for you to give me the sister's number? I'm in a similar situation. Nope. Not going to give her number out to anybody. May we ask if his father, if he was there with his mom? I don't know. We're not hearing much about the father, but we're going to have a part 2 with Samira.
We need a part 2.
This show on violence is hectic. It is. We didn't even get into real violence, to be honest. But we're going to leave that. Muhammad Varewa is returning to South Africa tomorrow, and inshallah we will address this with him on gender-based violence for sure. The next message is very long, so please forgive me. I cannot go through that message, but we will go through it at a later stage. Jazakallah khair. That was I think her personal messages that she was sending through about her current situation, about her husband and so forth. So she says she could go on and on. May Allah make it easy for us all. What she's going through, we make it dua for you. I'm going to go through your message off air as well. We have to wrap up from the afternoon jam. And Samira can read this message as well. She's a bubbly person, she says, and what she's going through with her husband currently. We're actually going to save this and use that as a precursor for a follow-up show, inshallah.